Sorry for posting this so late, but it took me a while to find somewhere I could hide, a place that no one else could get hurt. I first noticed the light one day when I was in school. I was working on a class assignment for math, struggling to figure out how to do a problem. All of a sudden, a light shone on my paper, illuminating my work. Usually our teacher kept the lights off in the classroom, only allowing small string lights to light up the room. But when I looked up, no one else had noticed the new lights turning on. That's when I realized that the light was coming from directly behind my head. I turned around to see it, but there was nothing there. Only a faint light coming from somewhere in the back of the room. I didn't pay much attention to it. I thought maybe it was something in the wall, a reflection, or even my mind playing tricks on me. It was a few days before I noticed it again. It was at night, and I had a friend over from school. Her name was Lana, and we'd been in school together ever since kindergarten. Life had gotten busier for both of us, so we didn't really get a chance to hang out much, at least not as much as we used to. Luckily today, we had a day off due to the snow, and since she lived close, she was able to come over. Today we were playing video games on Lana's new Switch that she got for her birthday. I didn't have one, and when I found out that she did, I was ecstatic to have her over. For hours into the night, we played various different games, including Mario Kart and Mario Party. I really liked Mario Kart, even though I wasn't as good as she was. Everything was going smoothly. During one game, I was really close to winning. I was right about to take a shortcut, which Lana had showed me, but right as I was about to make the jump, a flash of light illuminated the room, momentarily blinding me. What the hell? I yelled out, throwing the controller down on the floor and rubbing my eyes. What's wrong? Lana had paused the game and was looking at me. That flash, it blinded me. I looked at the screen, noticing that my character had fallen over the edge of the map and was in the middle of being lifted back onto the track. So much for winning. What flash? I turned to her, twisting my head in confusion. Didn't you see that flash? It was so bright. It filled the whole room. I turned back towards the screen, but I could see a flash of concern on her face. We continued playing for another hour, but I couldn't really concentrate anymore. How could she not see it? Did she do that because she saw that I was winning? I shook my head at the thought. Her character had still been moving on the bottom of the screen, so I didn't know how she could use her phone to create a flash while I was playing. Plus, we were next to each other. I feel like I definitely would have noticed her. Lana excused herself to go to the bathroom, so I took my chance. I turned my head backwards slightly, trying to see if there was anything behind me. On the gray wall of my bedroom, there was a small yellow dot in the top corner. What was that? I strained my head trying to get a better look. Was it a bug or something? It didn't seem to be moving at all. I was about to stand up to examine it further, but then Lana came back. We finished a few more games, but all I could think about was that dot on the wall. When she finally left, I stood up to inspect it. Each time I tried to touch it, the light would disappear, but when I removed my hand, there it would be again. I looked around my room, finding a piece of paper and a roll of tape. I folded the paper several times over and taped it over the wall. Satisfied that the light was completely covered, I got ready for bed and fell asleep pretty quick after. I woke up, rubbing my eyes. Had it already been morning? I grabbed my phone. It was 1:53 a.m. That's when I realized that the light wasn't coming from the window. In fact, it was still completely dark outside. I looked up above my bed. The light was shining through the paper and illuminating my bed. Hey honey, have you been feeling okay? You've been looking tired the past couple of days. I looked up to see my mom looking over at me from the opposite side of the table. Yeah, Mom, I'm fine. Things are just getting a little busy at school. That was a lie, but otherwise I didn't know what else to say to her. How was I supposed to tell her that a mysterious light was following me wherever I went? No one else seemed to notice it. She didn't even seem to notice it now, with the light shining directly on her face. Okay, well, if there's anything I can do to help. Thanks, Mom. She grabbed our plates from the table, walking behind me to set them in the kitchen sink. I heard a gasp from behind her and turned to see her staring at the back of my neck, wide-eyed. What's wrong? She stepped forward, holding her hand out to touch my neck. It burned. Ow! What was that? I don't know, but have you been outside a lot recently? It looks like you have some sort of sunburn on the back of your neck. A sunburn? I reached around to the back of my neck, feeling the skin flake beneath my fingers. Was this from the light? It's not like I'd been outside recently, and even if I had been, the skies had been cloudy recently. There wasn't much sun this time of year. We should take you to a doctor right now. That burn looks really bad. I wanted to argue, but I didn't know what to say. Maybe the doctor would be able to help, or at least tell me that I wasn't crazy. The drive to the doctor took less than half an hour, and luckily not too many people were in the waiting room. When they finally called my name, my mom walked up to the front with me. I'll be right here when you come out. After the nurse brought me to the room, I felt the hair stand up on the back of my neck. Somehow I knew that the light was still with me. I didn't know how bright it was in the brightly lit doctor's room, but it was there. Hello, Jen. It's nice to see you today. How's everything going? Things are going pretty well. Your mom tells me that she's worried about some kind of rash or skin issue on the back of your neck. Can I take a look? I turned my head around so that the back of my neck was facing her. There it was. It's faint, but it was right there in the middle of the wall. As I felt her hands leave my neck, I turned back toward her. When did you first start noticing this happen? I don't know. Not until today, at least. Today? Were you outside a lot recently? I shook my head. Do you go to the tanning salon or something similar? I shook my head again. I wanted to tell him what was happening, but what if she didn't believe me? Or what if she thought I was crazy and had me sent away somewhere? I mean, looking at this, it's like a classic case of sunburn. Too much sunlight. I just don't understand how this would happen this time of year. She looked up from the clipboard, eyebrows raised at me. Do you have any other ideas about how this could be happening? I paused for a few minutes before finally deciding. I'm not sure, but I've been seeing this light. A light? Yeah, it started a few weeks ago, but there seems to be this bright light following me around. I've seen it on... Before I could finish, Dr. Paisley had pushed up from her seat and backed up against the wall. I stood there, holding my hands up towards her. What's going... You need to leave. Right now. Wait, but I thought... She had already opened the door and ran out of the room, leaving me standing, dumbfounded. What the hell was going on? I turned back to the light on the wall. It seemed even brighter now. After a few weeks of this, I started to learn to live with the light. Started wearing a scarf all the time to cover up the back of my neck, and whenever I slept, I always used an eye mask or covered my face with a pillow. It didn't completely block out the light, but it helped. I was walking towards the library. Lana and I were supposed to meet up to work on a group project for our history class, and we needed some extra time outside of school to meet. With the constant light on me and anything in front of me, I was having trouble working at a fast enough pace during class. I saw Lana sitting on the steps leading up to the library, typing away on her phone. It was hard to see her from this far, but I yelled out to her to get her attention. When she looked up, I gasped, dropping my phone and books to the ground. Her face looked different. The skin on her face looked red and inflamed, and some of it was even peeling off. She noticed that I stopped in the middle of the sidewalk and started to walk towards me. As she got closer, her facial features became even more visible, and it looked even worse than I first thought. A few feet away, and now I could see that the skin on her face had started to peel off enough that long flaps of skin were hanging off her cheek. Long flaps dragged down her forehead, partially covering her eyes. On her nose, I could see exposed bone. Hey, Jen, she smiled at me, waving her hand back and forth. How can she act as if everything was fine? Now that she was close up, the light behind my head shined even brighter on her face. I watched in horror as the flaps on her cheek peeled off, falling to the floor. Her gaze followed mine, and she looked down at the same spot where the skin had fallen. What are you looking at? She looked back up again, curiosity filling her face. Nothing. How are you doing? Are you feeling okay? She looked from side to side, tightening the hood on her jacket around her face. "It's been getting a little too cold for me, but other than that, I'm okay. You ready to get this project started?" What was I supposed to do? Was this all part of my imagination? She seemed fine, even though she didn't look fine. "Yeah, sure." As we checked in at the front desk of the library, we made our way to one of the conference rooms in the back. I took out my notebook and my pencil, trying to ignore everything that was going on with my friend. I wanted to say something, but what was I supposed to say? "Hey, don't you notice your face is falling apart?" She would have thought I was crazy. Maybe I am. That would be the only thing that could explain what was happening. I blinked a few times, trying to read the information she was writing on the whiteboard. I think she was trying to schedule out what we should do next, but the intensity of the light was growing. The glare from the whiteboard blinded me, and I struggled to keep my eyes open. "Hey, are you okay?" Lana reached forward with her dried, inflamed arm. Now it was puffed up from all the light, and it was nearly twice the size it was before. I flinched from her touch. "If you're not feeling well, do you want to meet up another time instead?" I was about to decline when I saw her hand, and the rest of the room started to light up even brighter. Now the light was completely filling the entire room. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I couldn't see for a few seconds. When the light finally died down, I wiped my eyes with my sleeve. There Lana was, standing right in front of me. Her arm was reached forward, still, face twisted. But instead of her arm reaching out towards me, it looked like it had been ripped from her elbow. I screamed. Her wrist and hand were shriveled on the table, nearly burnt to a crisp. "Jen, what's going—" Before she could finish, I was already shoving my way out the door. I didn't even stop to say anything to the librarian, who had overheard the commotion from the conference room. I couldn't be around anyone right now. I ran all the way back to my house. I didn't want to stop. I couldn't stop. I didn't know what would happen if I did. The light started to shine brightly as I made my way through the rest of town. In my confusion and haste, I failed to notice an older man standing in the middle of the sidewalk. "Sorry," I yelled as I shoved my way past him. I heard him fall to the ground and heard a loud pop. I desperately wanted to turn back to see how he was doing, but I couldn't. I felt an arm grab me by the shoulder, twisting me around. A younger woman was glaring at me. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I turned back to see a small crowd had gathered around the old man on the floor. His cane had snapped in half, and he was grabbing at his hip. "I'm sorry, I really need to. Look at what you did. How can you be so reckless? Are you trying to run away like nothing happened?" I tried to jerk my arm away from her grasp, but her grip on me was too tight. "Please, I really need to." "No, you need to stay here and wait for the police. Someone's already called them, and they're on their way." "Please, you don't understand." The light started to get even brighter now, brighter than it had been in the library. When I could finally see again, I stared in horror with my mouth wide open. The woman and the people behind her were all gone. All that remained were the charred bones. The snow around them had melted, leaving the bones floating in a puddle of water. The only thing that remained at my feet were ashes. I brought my hand up to my face, and I couldn't stop them from shaking. They were reddened and burnt, but I couldn't feel any pain. I ran without stopping all the way back to my house. I didn't know where else to go, but I had to go somewhere where no one else would be. Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining me for tonight's story. If you haven't already, I always suggest hit that subscribe button. Maybe go ahead and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the great stories that we do here. I've got a link below to my latest book if you'd like to pick up your own copy. Follow the link below down to Amazon, and if you'd prefer a signed one, get up with me. I'm sure we can work something out. If you'd like to support the show in a more monetary way, might I suggest heading on down to Patreon. We have several tiers. I'm sure you'll find something that'll suit you. I always recommend my $10 tier, which is my Ghostly Reader tier. You get a signed copy of my book on your doorstep anytime I write one. which is, on average, about twice a year. Speaking of my awesome patrons, let's go ahead and thank them, shall we? Thanks to Janet for being our Spooky Skeleton tier contributor, and thanks to Winter, Xaronan, Emily Coltsfoot, Stephanie Carrington, Marianne Schuler, Jennifer Damron, and Tyler Parker for being our Ghostly Reader tier contributors. Thanks, everyone. We just couldn't do the show without you. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.